One more, right? You just need one more.
We need Richard. We're expecting him. Yeah, we need one more.
I think that at 7:10 we should get started for sure.
Yeah, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. I agree.
Josephine, you see the stream?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to start, Diane? And
I'm fine with starting, and if Richard joins us, then we'll have a quorum. Otherwise, we'll just make our recommendation.
okay, great.
All right, just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Just give me 1 second. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Community Board 10 Parks Committee Committee meeting. I'm glad that you are all able to join us. And I would like to introduce the members of the Parks Department who will be making a presentation this evening regarding the Shore Road Park Dog Run construction. We have with us Mike Madden, Rachel Kramer, Chris Yandoli, Terry Naranjo, and Chris Syret, all from the Parks Department. And with no further ado, I'm going to turn over the meeting for their presentation. So here we go.
Wonderful. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. Let's hope this works well. Is everyone able to see this?
Looks good.
Wonderful. And you can hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to try to get full screen. All right. So I just want to say, in general, thanks for having this meeting. It's great that we can do this via Zoom and move this project forward. And my name is Mike Madden. I work for the New York City Parks Department. I'm a designer, and I worked on this project in conjunction with Zoe Chen, who is currently out on maternity leave. Some details on the project: the budget was $1 million, and that was allocated by City Council District 43 and Justin Brannon. And the project size is a small but ample 0.4 acres, so that's about a half acre there. So we have some goals for the project, and these were based on our community input meeting that was in November of last year on the 12th, which took place on site. So our goals are to provide spaces to accommodate large and small dogs. We want to include amenities for dogs and dog walkers both, and to provide a welcoming entrance and enhance existing lighting. These are our goals on this slide, but we also have a couple of other goals that are based on community input, and those are to have softer surfaces, so less concrete, for example. And on top of that, we wanted to think about correcting some of the drainage issues that are currently happening on site. So if you're familiar with this area of the site, it is a very low point in the park, and there have been some issues with water accumulating there. Oh, and sorry, one last thing. We also want to make sure it's ADA accessible, which is just a general goal for parks, but especially here, I think that's very important. And you all likely know a lot about this park, more than I do, I would imagine, but just some background. Shore Road Park spans the entirety of Bay Ridge. It's 58 acres, and our site is at the southernmost tip of that. So of the 58 acres, we are 0.4 of those, and we are located between 3rd and 4th Ave, right next to the tennis courts between Shore Parkway and Belt Parkway and Shore Road. Again, stuff that the community probably knows. This is the land use on the site currently. It's largely residential. In terms of the other parks in the area, there are a handful within a 10-minute walk, and also quite a lot more of Shore Road Park in terms of program. So Shore Road Park itself offers basketball and baseball, handball, tennis, etc. John Paul Jones and Bay Ridge Promenade are more passive parks. And then we have John J. Carty, which offers some of the same features as Shore Road Park. But none of these parks have a dedicated dog run space. And here I just want to talk about the existing conditions on the site. So at certain points throughout this site's history, it was a playground. It was also a temporary ice skating rink, and it has been used more recently for construction staging. You may have noticed the large, not in perfect condition, 10-foot high fence here that's been used for construction staging. And within that, we have a really large swath of asphalt. So this is a big impermeable surface and little bits of concrete and some remaining features. So we have some playground features in here that we'll see in some of the site photos later in the presentation. And we've got 3 great light posts and a currently empty planting bed on the outside of the site. And just beyond this 8-foot fence, we have a small wooded area, and we also have the entry ramp beyond that to get on the Belt Parkway, and then a view of the Verrazano down here. So this slide kind of explores some of the same topics, so I'm not going to stay on here much. This is kind of just our assessment of what those things mean. So you can see we have this fence that's not in great condition and some old play equipment, and these little tree pits here. In terms of accessing the site, there are 4 ways to enter the Shore Road Park from this southern point of the park. So we have 3 pedestrian-only entries here, 2 on either side of the comfort station, 1 just north of those, and then our main, or not our main rather, another entry, our main entry for maintenance purposes, is at the intersection of 4th Avenue here. So this is a combined pedestrian and maintenance vehicle entry. This is a very important slide. This is our tree inventory. So luckily, we have a number of really established, beautiful shade trees on site, and we've been out there with our forester, and they're all in very good condition. So we're excited to say that we'd like to be keeping all of those, and we're going to work to do that. And I think these trees will be a great resource in the summer months when it's very warm. And here we have a view from those stone steps that come down from the comfort station. So it's a panorama, and you can see that 10-foot high fence that's not in excellent condition. And you can see through the trees, because it's fall, the Verrazano in the background. And between the park site and the viewpoint, we have the path, and then we have our little planting bed outside of the fence. Next, it's a view of the paths, very similar to the last photo in terms of content, but this is just a view of those planting beds, a view of the path, and then some of those light posts. Here are 2 views from inside the park, or the future dog run, and you can see the remains of a former sand pit in the playground. And by and large, the site is mostly just covered with asphalt. So it's cracked asphalt. It's not in excellent condition. There's some differential settlement, and we're just excited to transform this. For photo 6 and 7, we have an inactive drinking fountain. This has probably not been in any usable condition for decades at this point, and we don't plan to make active use of this connection. We'll be putting in new connections that are much more updated. And then there are some sinkholes next to a manhole on site. We have been in touch with DEP in order to remedy what's actually happening here before we begin construction. And with all of this stuff in mind, I'm very excited to show you our schematic plan for the dog run itself. So the schematic plan all starts at this entry. So we have this double door, double gate entry here off of the main path, which is aligned with the stairs. And within that vestibule, we have a trash bin and a dog bag dispenser, of course. And from there, the path there's a concrete path that leads to either side of the dog run, and that's an ADA accessible path, which will have companion seating and bench seating. And the site is divided by a 4-foot high fence into 2 distinct dog runs with a lot of the same features. So we have the small dog run here on the southern point of the site with both open lawn and synthetic turf, and that's just under 4,000 square feet. And then we have the large dog run here, which is about 12,000 in total, and dogs are able to run from the synthetic turf to the lawn and enjoy that shade and kind of explore as much of the site as we're able to provide. Also to note, we will be including water access in this design. So there is a bottle filler with a dog bowl. We'll have hose spigot connections, and we will also be including a storage box. So the community group can actually store accessories necessary for the dog run in this when they're not there. Just outside the fence here, outside of the 4-foot fence, which I'll talk about in a moment, we will have compact inkberry, which is a beautiful native, very adaptable evergreen shrub. And that's not going to grow above the fence. It's going to just enhance and soften that edge. So what that will do is make this look nice in the winter as well as the summer. And it's also going to change the feel of this pathway so that you don't have a very large fence as you walk by it. Here's the fence diagram, and this is pretty important because it's really changing the way this space will feel to people both using the dog run and people walking by it. So based on the site requirements and also kind of in line with the Parks Without Borders initiative, we're lowering the fence on the path side to 4 feet, which is definitely adequate for a dog run. And we're also dividing the dog run with that 4-foot high fence. We're going to keep the existing 8-foot fence along the back of the site because that protects us from the adjacent properties, it's connected to the highway, and it also helps kind of change the view of this site. And then we're going to keep the existing 12-foot high chain link fence on the side of the tennis courts. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a geotextile fabric to kind of obscure the view for the dogs in the bottom 4 feet of that, because we don't want these large dogs being distracted or barking or really enjoying the tennis balls in the tennis court and maybe not the tennis balls that their owner is throwing. And then we're going to protect our trees with some pretty interesting steel tree guards. The kit of parts that we were thinking of using and that we hope to use for this site will be a synthetic turf that's canine friendly. It's specifically designed for dogs. And it will align similar to how this photo does. It will be flush with a concrete walkway. So visually that will have some similarities. We will be using a 1-inch chain link mesh, and that will prevent dog paws and noses and, God forbid, teeth from going through the fence, either between the 2 dog runs, but also with the path. We're going to provide 2 types of bench. So depending on your seating needs, we'll have both an 8-foot armed backed bench, but also a backless bench in a 4-foot length. And here's that inkberry shrub I was mentioning, a great native habitat providing evergreen shrub that's available to or able to adapt to a lot of conditions. And then these tree grates or tree guards. I think we also saw some of these in the plan. So we have the steel storage box, the trash bin, of course. And importantly, we have the bottle filler with the dog bowl, and then the dog bag dispenser. So this is one of the last slides, but in some ways kind of one of the most important. So this is what we're doing in terms of improving the permeability on the site. So this site, while it's not technically in a flood zone, it's just outside of it. It is really susceptible to some of these drainage issues that you may have seen if you've been there. So what we're hoping to do with our synthetic turf application is use that as a way to do some clever engineering. And underneath that, we'd like to install a pretty robust drainage system that prevents input onto this area of the path up here, but also just manages and collects all of the stormwater that hits our site, instead of sending it elsewhere or sending it directly into the river. And then we'll also be just improving the overall health of the trees by including that softened lawn area, because their roots will finally have space to breathe. And that just about ends our slideshow presentation for the dog run. Thank you for inviting us to show it to you. And I think it's just a great opportunity to have a project to look forward to moving forward.
Thank you very much, Mike. Before I open the floor to questions, I have a question of my own.
Of course.
Those metal tree guards, how do those operate in order to keep the area nice and clean? Is there a gate that opens up that area can be cleaned for any kind of leaves or other debris that might fall in there?
That's a great question. So while we haven't worked out the exact detail for what we're going to use there, we're going to make sure that we run it by our maintenance and operations and just make sure that everything is really readily able to be cleaned, because of course we don't want dog bags or refuse or leaf litter or anything to accumulate in there. And that'll be a big part of how we design them. The image that you saw was from a playground, so that had slightly different requirements. I imagine ours might be a little bit shorter than that, and we're really hoping that it'll be very accessible for maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else on the committee or in the meeting have any questions? I can't really see if anybody does or not. So Mark, can you let me know, or Josephine?
I don't see anyone with a hand raised, but there is a feature for everyone. If you're not familiar with Zoom, on the participants, there is a raise hand feature. You can press the raise hand so we know if you have a question. But I have a question for Parks about the width of the fence. Do you feel, will there be mesh for the smaller dogs?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? It echoed a bit for me.
Will there be mesh for the smaller dogs? Is the fence width adequate?
Yeah, so the fencing between the dog runs as well as on the other side, that will have the 1-inch chain link mesh. So it'll be a much smaller mesh to keep everybody safe. The geotextile fabric I mentioned will only be on the 12-foot side, just to kind of obscure the view a bit. But otherwise, they'll all have a very dog-friendly and dog-safe small mesh.
Okay, when is this, or how long is this project projected to, take?
Well, that's a great question. So our design timeline, we will finish our design phase November 12th, so exactly a year to the date of the original community input meeting. And then from there, we have a procurement process, which is typically 9 months. Some have been going faster, but I definitely can't promise anything. And our construction, we usually budget between 12 and 18 months for that. So that leaves us with a good projection getting to August 2022, I believe.
Okay.
This is Chris Surratt jumping in. I think we'll do a 12-month construction here. It's not going to take the full 18 months. So we're going to gain some time there.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Dan. I'm seeing the double gate on the far right, the 4-foot high double gate. I'm assuming that's maintenance access, right? That'll mostly usually be locked?
Exactly. So that will be locked nearly 100% of the time, except for when maintenance crews are coming in. So they'll come right off the path here. And then there is also, as you can see, there's another double gate here, just so they can easily go from one section to the other.
All right. And the existing LED lights, about how bright would they go? Because I know that a lot of dog walkers in Bay Ridge, they'll bring their dogs in very, very early down to Shore Road. So like early pre-dawn kind of hours, just be interested to see how far those lights could kind of stretch into the main area.
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't looked into the exact lumens of those, but they'll definitely provide light that is adequate or greater than what a current typical light post in a parks property would have. So the new LED fixtures typically shed more light. And on top of that, they're just much more efficient and environmentally friendly because of it.
Great. And the shading provided by the trees, I'm imagining there's a shading study that would happen to just see about how much shade that would provide, especially on very hot days. I know in Bay Ridge, we have a lot of people that really clamor, especially in the summer, for a very nice shaded dog walk area, especially because a lot of the benching and things seem, well, at least for the small dog area, it looks like the large dog area actually has some pretty good canopy cover from the north, from the upper part of the image there. But just wanted to make sure that there's enough shading in near the seating areas for people waiting around watching their dogs play.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So we've definitely looked at the overall canopy width of these trees, which will be greatly extended considering this park faces pretty much due south. So we're going to imagine these shadows here extending a bit further in the summer months. And I do believe that the benches in the small dog run will be covered. However, in terms of being realistic, I think that some of these benches here are likely to get some sun. So we're trying to offer some shaded seating on the northern side here in the large dog run.
Great. Yeah, just having that alternative seating is really good.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay then. Well, I do not believe that we have a quorum this evening. So in terms of that, I guess we... Josephine or Dorothy, because I can't see who they are.
I saw Lori came on. She's not a member of the committee. She's the chair of the board. No, I don't think you have a quorum.
Okay.
So, but you can still have a recommendation.
Oh, of course, yes. 1 second.
No, Lori's the chair. It's always nice to have her on at the meeting. No, hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori. There we go. So in terms of how we proceed, if there is no further comment or questions for the Parks Department, I would like to entertain a recommendation that we can make to the full board that considering everything that was presented, that we move forward with our recommendation to proceed with this project. If anyone would like to make such a motion or a recommendation, I'm open to it, but I can't see everybody. Oh. Mark, can you bring us back to the full?
Justin has his hand raised. Justin Hyatt.
Okay, Justin. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. There we go. Okay. So, Justin, you want to make a recommendation?
So, what do I do? Just motion on the floor here to recommend,
yes,
to make a recommendation that we do proceed with this during our next community board meeting?
Correct.
Okay, so there a second to that recommendation? I don't know if we have to go through that.
I will second.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And so all committee members, I guess, if you would just signify by, is there a hand? I don't see the raised hand thing, but if you could just raise your hand so I can see. All Parks Committee members, all in favor? Okay, so is anybody opposed to it? Anybody have any objections that they'd like to raise at this time?
No.
Seeing none, we will present at the full board meeting on Monday, and we will move forward with this recommendation. I do want to thank the Parks Department for such a concise study. It was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to this, to seeing this area of the park be reconstructed, so that, you know, even our furry animals can have a place to run and exercise and be in a nice area instead of cracked asphalt and concrete. They deserve much more. And so with that, that was the only thing on our agenda this evening. Am I correct? Yes.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And I do hope that all the mothers had a wonderful Mother's Day yesterday. And the mothers of all the other members attending this evening had a wonderful Mother's Day. I do hope that you all keep safe and keep well. And I'll look forward to seeing you all on our next general board meeting.
Right here on Zoom.
Right here on Zoom, for sure. Mark Moss, thank you so much for facilitating this meeting for us. And again, to the Parks Department representatives, thank you very much for attending. With that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.